So here we are again with another deck tech suggestions for the standard murders at Karlov Manor. And this one is again provided by the TCG player website. We have this one, as we call this one, as the Dimir crime. So what would this deck would be the main strategy? Is it somewhat like a control deck? Maybe. But the good answer here is that it is a reanimator deck. So you can see a quick view of this. We have some new cards included, which is probably the core card of this strategy, the Reenact the Crime. So this is an instant that's 3 blue mana and 1 of any color, colorless. It will exile a target non-land card in a graveyard that was put there from anywhere this turn and copy it, and then you may cast it without paying some mana cost. So in a way, it's like a reanimation, except that it's not only reanimating creatures, but just a non-land card that was placed into graveyard that turn. So how do we go with this? We have a few variants or way that we can somewhat cheat it into the graveyard and can use Reenact the Crime to play it for free. So we have a quick rundown of the cards, 6 artifacts, 3 enchantments, 4 planeswalkers, 2 sorcery with duress, 25 lands, and still the blue-black colors or Dimir, 13 creatures that can somewhat enable the discarding to graveyard, and of course the 7 instants, including the 4 copies or the playset copies of Reenact the Crime. So we go first with what will be our enablers or the discard and draw effects. So we have 4 copies of Rona, Herald of Invasion. This is a 2 cast 1/3 creature that you can tap, draw a card, and then discard a card. It can also be used to untap whenever you cast a legendary spell. That means that you have also other cards here that has Bohar, which is also a legendary creature, and Shieldred. But its ability that you would be able to just draw a card and then discard a card, and then use it to discard these expensive but valuable enchantments artifacts into your graveyard. And also bonus is that whenever you can be able to pay 6, you can have this one become a Rona Tolarian Obliterator, which is a 5/5 Phyrexian Wizard. And whenever a source deals damage to Obliterator, that source controller exiles a card from their hand and at random. And if it's a land card, you may put it into the battlefield you control. Otherwise, you may cast it without paying mana cost. So in a way, it can be also a threat on its own, even that you can be able to flip it or transform it in the mid game and even in the late game. Also, we have 4 copies of Bohar, Bodalian Desecrator. This is also the same ability that you can tap, draw a card, and then discard a card. If you discarded an instant or sorcery card this way, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So another way to also somewhat siphon off life totals of your opponents. And then you can pay 2, sacrifice it to cast a target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. So if that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead and activated only as a sorcery. So in the late game also, extra discarded cards, for example, if you've discarded Reenact the Crime or any other instant or sorceries, you can just use Bohar's ability to be able to cast it for somewhat like a flashback effect, because you can still be able to play it, pay its mana cost after the paying of 2 and sacrificing it. So that's one way to also gain value for the mid-game setup. And of course, we've added the 2 Shieldred Apocalypse. Whenever that you have multiple draw effects, then you can be able to benefit that way, having to gain 2 life. And also, of course, a passive way to punish your opponents whenever they draw a card that they would lose 2 life. So another included legendary creature here is a copy of Aklaxot's Deepest Betrayal, wherein whenever it attacks, having only not a 4/4 flyer in lifelink, you can have your opponent discard a card, and those who can't discard a card, you will draw a card. And then whenever they discard a land card, you will create a 1 black bat creature token with flying. And of course, given a way that can be target of spot removals, aside from exile effects, destroying this one would that mean that you can have this one returned as a Temple of the Dead, and that you can also pay 3 to transform it back to Aklaxot's if a player has 1 or fewer cards in hand and only as a sorcery. So that's another card value there. And we have the new card, the Sphinx, which is Conspiracy Unraveler. This is 2 copies in the deck. So this is a 7 to cast 6/6 flying. You may collect evidence 10 rather than pay the mana cost of spells you cast. So in a way, you can have options to somewhat gain value out of your cards for casting spells by having to collect evidence by example removing extra cards from your graveyard with mana value 10 or greater. So you can see here we have variants that are expensive kind of cards that are be able for you to use as a collect evidence for the conspiracy unraveler's ability. Now for the huge spells as mentioned, we have options here. Portal to Phyrexia, we have 4 copies in the deck. So targeting this one with Reenact the Crime would also mean you to copy this, and also have this effect that when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, and at the same time it would have this upkeep effect to put target card from a graveyard to the battlefield under your control. Now for another utility card here that is also a way to discard a card is that there have 2 copies of the Collector's Bolt. So this 2 mana, pay 2 to activate, pay 2 tap, draw a card, and then discard a card. You will also create a treasure token to somewhat ramp you into this kind of setup. And for the enchantments, we have also some way to use Cruelty of Geeks to somewhat tutor for a specific card or put target creature card from a graveyard into the battlefield. And we have, of course, the one with the multiverse. So resolving this one would basically have you a very good chance to streamline a lot of spells and lands from your top card library, and at the same time a bonus trigger during once of each of your turns casting a spell from your hand or your top card library without paying its mana cost. So that these 2 copies in the deck. Now for the instance, we have aside from Reenact the Crime, are 2 copies of Spot Removals, Go for the Throat, and a copy of Long Goodbye. This is somewhat a new version of a destroy effect that in this the bonus that it can be countered, but the only targeted creature or planeswalker is mana value 2 or less, 3 or less. I mean, so it still would really have you a good chance to somewhat control the board while also developing your hand or having to draw a card, discard a card, and have the Reenact the Crime mana on your 4th turn or maybe in your 5th turn, depending on the situation. Now the 2 Planeswalker here and the Planeswalker added in the sorcery would mean that you would have 2 ways to also disrupt your opponent or any chances that you are facing a control deck, for example. You will need Duress to somewhat discard their best counter against your Reenact the Crime, and also having Lena of the Veil to gain you card advantage because you are discarding those pieces that should be the good target for Reenact the Crime while also disrupting your opponent's hand, so they would not really have enough cards in hand to somewhat answer your spell or for you to resolve this Reenact the Crime setup. So in a way, there are various setup that would also benefit you, like disrupting your opponent's hand with this one with Duress and then of the Veil, while also having a way to sacrifice their best creature by this Edek effect. And so for the lands, of course, various mana fix here with the Darkslick Shores, of course, Shipwreck Mars, and mana lands are also added with 4 copies of Restless Reef, and Underground River is also considered to make sure that mana fix would be needed for the deck, saying that you need 3 blue mana by 4th turn to be able to cast the Reenact the Crime. And in addition to that, of course, channel lands are always present in this kind of deck build, Tawara and Takinuma, and a single copy of Mirex, which also goes with the mid-game setup of producing these Phyrexian Might artifact creatures. Now for the mana curve, it's basically somewhat expensive in a way because of the value of average to 4, but you can see here that you can basically curve out by turn 2. You can still have turn 4 play or turn 3 Liliana, and then turn 4 Reenact the Crime is also your way to cheat out these best cards that you can have you to do with the card advantage basically. In card distribution, we have black for 28 for blue, and producers are pretty much even, 25 black producers and 24 blue producers. And the only extras here maybe are with the treasure, the back token, and the Phyrexian Might. But I think with the Reenact the Crime setup, by the exiling and putting a copy on it, maybe would need you to require a token to represent the copy of that exile the non-land card from your graveyard with the effect of Reenact the Crime. So I guess that's pretty much it for this deck. We have a Dimir Crime setup, which is somewhat a Dimir Reanimator, but the variance of having the Reenact the Crime as your main way to gain advantage, board advantage early on by this, powered by these discard effects. So that's pretty much it, guys, for this one. Let me know in the comments below if you want a good discussion of this deck, and also your other ideas that we can have a way to present them, and also somewhat upgrade this list depending on the new cards and other card options from the upcoming deck or upcoming set for Murders at Karlov Manor. Again, guys, thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.